Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Modern. Last time around, we started off our new adventure with Rose. What was that one about?
Well, a young woman working in a department store. As they're closing up, she has to go down and talk to, I can't remember if she was actually going to talk to the manager or to the guy who was in charge of tech, but she went down into the basement and all the mannequins came alive and she was just about to get, I guess, chopped into pieces. And the man grabbed her hand and said, "Run," and it was the new doctor, and he managed to use her and save London from the invasion of the Autons. And at the end, she said she wasn't going to go with him, but then she kissed her boyfriend goodbye and ran off with the doctor.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a thing of, in the moment, she was like, no, and then just as soon as he came back, it's like, okay, well, he's not going to come back again, so it is sort of a now or never, so.
And after we watched, I did look it up, and I was right. The woman, actress who plays Rose's mother, was in a wonderfully silly film called King Ralph. If you have seen it in the UK, I'm sure you have. It's about a royal family gets together for a family photograph in the rain, and when the photographer sets off the flash, it electrocutes everyone. Parliament, of course, has to dig through all the files to find out if there are any living relatives. And apparently the closest living relative of some lounge singer or somebody in the United States, played by John Goodman, and he's brought over and they try to teach him to become the new king. Very similar to I want to say, wonderful old play with a very tragic history called Our American Cousin, written in the 1850s, if I recall correctly. It's by a young man from the United States who inherits a title and goes over to England to accept it. And of course, the upper class over there do not accept him because he's such a country bumpkin, and he really is. And the play probably would have gone down in history as just another, fun little fish out of water comedy, except for in April of 1865, it was playing at the Ford's Theater a week after the American Civil War came to an end. And Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln decided to attend it because they needed some happiness in their lives. And during the second act, an actor named John Wilkes Booth crept into the balcony seating area where Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln and another couple were, and he shot and killed Mr. Lincoln. But all of that has nothing to do with anything. I'm really looking forward to this. I totally enjoyed Christopher Eccleston, as I said I probably would, since during our tour of New Who, I had actually seen Dalek. So he's everything I thought he would be, and I'm very happy about that.
So if any of you are new to the channel, you see, there's some people are reacting to Doctor Who for the first time. Obviously, again, we'll say he has only seen classic Doctor Who and a handful of modern episodes. I've seen all of Doctor Who, and I'm rewatching Modern Who. But this is something that you can expect often on this channel, is we will just go on a tangent that doesn't relate to Doctor Who whatsoever. So,
one last thing from last week. I think I had mentioned that I was going to go audition for a wonderfully, hysterically funny British play by Brandon Thomas called Charlie's Aunt. And I was very fortunate. I have been cast as Colonel Sir Francis Chesney, Baronet. So, looking forward to playing Frank Chesney.
That's the other part, is life updates, along with historical anecdotes and such.
Yes.
So, anywho. But that's all in the wonderful preamble or pre-ramble that we have before the episode and, after the episode. Sometimes during the episode, but it probably won't happen now that it's all just one go-through. We can't stop between parts and just yammer on about nothing. So, you said a lot. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then we might as well jump right into episode 2 of Modern Doctor Who. Here we go.
Right then, Rose Tyler, you tell me, where do you want to go? Backwards or forwards in time? It's your choice. What's it going to be?
Forwards, 100 years.
Almost in time for the Dalek invasion of Earth.
Me.
There you go, step outside those doors. It's the 22nd century.
You're kidding.
That's a bit boring though. Do you want to go further?
Fine by me.
let's not go to the 22nd century so that we don't have to spend the money on that set.
Step outside, it's the year 12,005, the new Roman Empire.
You think you're so impressive.
I am so impressive.
You wish.
Right then, you asked for it. I know exactly where to go.
Again, I'd love to see the new Roman Empire, but
Yeah. To crank it up like an old Model T Ford.
well, the more time passes, the worse the TARDIS gets.
This is the year 5.5/Apple/26, 5 billion years in your future. And this is the day. Hold on. This is the day the sun expands. Welcome to the end of the world.
It's a heck of a first place to go.
That thrumming should still be louder.
Well,
That was the whole point of that first episode, that first theme. What does the T in Russell T stand for?
I don't know. I've never asked.
So when it says guests, does that mean people?
Depends what you mean by people.
I mean people. What do you mean?
Aliens.
What are they doing on board this spaceship? What's it all for?
It's not really a spaceship, more like an observation deck. The great and the good are gathering to watch the planet burn.
What for?
Fun.
Roast some marshmallows.
The planet looks the same as ever. I thought the continents shifted and things.
They did, and the trust shifted them back. That's a classic Earth. Look, there, you see, it's fine. You see? The Doctor +1. I'm the Doctor. This is Rose Tyler. She's my +1. Is that all right?
Well, obviously. Apologies, etc. If you're on board, we'd better start. Enjoy.
Why does that look like Hugh Laurie?
The paper's slightly psychic. Shows them whatever I want them to see. Saves a lot of time.
That's new.
Well, yeah. Oh, what good am I if I can't look up a cast list?
Next, from the solicitors Jolko and Jolko, we have the Mox of Balhoun. And next, from Financial Family 7, we have the adherents of the repeated meme. The inventors.
The gift of peace. I bring you a cutting of my grandfather.
Thank you. Yes, gifts. I give you in return air from my lungs.
Carbon dioxide.
How intimate.
There's more where that came from.
I bet there is.
The Mox of Balhoun.
My felicitations upon this historical happenstance. I bring you the gift of bodily salivas.
Thank you very much.
Much appreciated. Work on your aim, though.
Oh no, don't stare. I know it's shocking, isn't it?
I've had my chin completely taken away, and look at the difference. Look how thin I am. My father was a Texan. My mother was from the Arctic desert.
Meh.
They were born on the earth, and they were the last to be buried in its soil. I have come to honor them.
It makes sense that Texas never changed in all these years.
The last remaining ostrich egg. Legend says it had a wingspan of 50 feet and blew fire from its nostrils. Or was that my third husband?
Meh.
No. According to the archives, this was called an iPod.
Meh.
Stores classical music.
Refreshments will now be served. Earth Death in 30 minutes.
Yeah. Could be worse.
Oh, this can't be good.
I won't be long. Just got to carry out some maintenance. There's a tiny little glitch in the face of Beau's suite. There must be something blocking the system. He's not getting any hot water.
So you're a plumber?
He's a big
That's
face.
right, miss.
Needs a lot of water.
I just sort of hitched a lift with this man. Didn't even think about it. Don't even know who he is. He's a complete stranger.
Well, when you put it like that.
Anyway,
How many of you are there? What are you? Oh no!
Ugh. It's like the old baby spider thing in Toy Story. I hate it.
my name's Rose. That's a sort of plant. You might be related. Talking to a twig.
I am Groot.
What do you think then?
Great, yes, fine. Once you get past the slightly psychic paper. They're just so alien.
It was a little fast.
Where are you from?
What does it matter?
Tell me who you are.
This is who I am, right here, right now. All right, all that counts is here and now, and this is me.
Yeah, and I'm here too because you brought me here, so just tell me.
He's being very Colin Bakerish.
Meh.
What day is it?
Wednesday, all day. You got a hangover? Oh, I tell you what. Put quid in that lottery syndicate. I'll pay you back later.
Yeah, I was just calling because I might be late home.
Is there something wrong?
No, I'm fine. Top of the world.
In a cosmic sort of way.
I think that's amazing. You want to see the bill?
5 billion years later, my mum's dead.
Bundle of laughs you are.
Baked him like a potato.
Meh.
Well, she's not my wife.
Partner?
No.
Concubine?
No.
Prostitute?
Whatever I am, it must be invisible. Do you mind? Tell you what, you two go and pollinate. I'm going to catch up with the family. Quick word with Michael Jackson.
I kept myself pure.
How many operations have you had?
708. Next week, it's 709. I'm having my blood bleached.
Yes.
Is that why you wanted a word? You could be flattered. You've got a little bit of a chin poking out.
I'd rather die.
Honestly, it doesn't hurt.
I mean it. I would rather die. It's better to die than live like you, a bitchy trampoline.
Oh, well.
So, tell me, Jade, what's a tree like you doing in a place like this?
Meh.
I know where you're from. Forgive me for intruding, but it's remarkable that you even exist. I just wanted to say how sorry I am.
I'm guessing this is the setup for the Dalek War.
Meh.
Well, that was rude.
Meh.
Come gather, come gather. Bid farewell to the cradle of civilization. Let us mourn her with a traditional ballad.
Britney Spears.
Meh.
Maybe I can't just leave.
That is 2005.
Anyone in there? Oh, well, it would be you. Hold on, it's 2 ticks.
Don't worry, it's lowering at a dramatic rate.
I can't open the door. Stay there. Don't move.
I'm gonna go, Ipswich!
The whole event was sponsored by the Face of Bo. He invited us. Talk to the face, talk to the face.
Easy way of finding out. Someone brought a little pet on board.
Well, the face of Bo is so nice. Why would you accuse him?
My spiders have control of the mainframe. Oh, you all carried them as gifts, tax-free, past every code war. I'm not just a pretty face.
Sabotaging a ship while you...
The compensation would have been enormous.
5 billion years and it still comes down to money.
Do you think it's cheap?
Boy, if that ain't Doctor Who.
Flatness costs a fortune. I am
It's also
the
Die
last
Hard.
human, Doctor.
Meh.
Me.
Force fields gone, with the planet about to explode. At least it'll be quick.
Just like my fifth husband. Shame on me.
Oh, and guess where the switch is?
Heat levels rising.
Galaxy Quest.
Rising.
Yeah.
You can't. The heat's gonna bend through this place.
I know.
Jabe, you're made of wood.
Then stop wasting time. Time Lord. Heat levels rising. We're going to die!
Yeah, it's a bit odd. Nobody has a spaceship they can just leave in. At least they didn't show it that much.
8,
It's a leap of faith, Doctor.
7, 6, 5,
Let's use the Force.
4.
Good job.
Exoglass repair.
Oof.
Exoglass repair. Exoglass repair.
And all you're getting out of it is just a tan.
So, you passed my little test, bravo. This makes you eligible to join the human club.
People have died, Cassandra.
Good
You
improv.
murdered them. You're creaking.
What? I'm drying out.
There's no moisturizing.
Heavens.
Yeah.
Moisturizing. Oh, doctor. Oh, doctor.
Help her.
Everything has its time and everything dies.
I am too young.
Yeah. Oh, good. The face of Bo lived. Oh, that big rock is London.
All those years, all that history, and no one was even looking. It's just...
Come with me.
You think it'll last forever? People and cars and concrete. But it won't. One day it's all gone. My planet's gone. It's dead. It burned like the Earth. There was a war and we lost.
Well, with who? Oh, can you smell chips?
Yeah. Yeah.
I want chips.
Me too.
Right then, before you get me back in that box, chips it is and you can pay.
No money.
What sort of date are you? Come on then, tightwad, chips are on me. We've only got 5 billion years till the shops close.
There we go. You don't see that. I think I am going to have to go in and cut out the next times just because I'm not fast enough to get to them.
Oh,
So
don't worry about it. I mean, you know I'll forget that by 4 o'clock this afternoon.
That's true. Forget all of your existential dread. Go have some chips. So,
And see, here's the thing. You've never had fish and chips.
no.
Not only have you never had American fish and chips, you've never had actual authentic English fish and chips. I lived on fish and chips when I lived in England. It is the thing that I miss the most, other than the history, of course. I mean, I got to see London, I got to see the Cathedral Ely, I got to see Cambridge, got to see, all of that area in and around East Anglia and London. Love that part. But there's no place in America that I've ever found that makes fish and chips like the one that we had there in Bilden Hall. So, for those of you in Bilden Hall, please pack me up some fish and chips and send it here. Now, let me start by asking this. When this came back, when it rebooted in 2005, were the old Doctor Who fans not in favor of it being now more of an action show than what it used to be?
I'm not sure, because I think it's different from the movie, because we had a number of comments about the movie that it was a little too much. Or I watched a video talking about the movie, and it was like it's a bit too much. I think though the problem with the movie for people, it wasn't just that it was too much action and everything, is that it was a lot more action than was in classic Doctor Who, and kind of had a nonsensical plot of, the Master and the Eye of Harmony and stuff like that. Whereas I think with this one, people are more okay with it because it does still feel like a Doctor Who story, at least. So, and honestly, just kind of watching this episode again, now having seen so much, honestly, I am kind of looking at the sets in this space station. I'm like, these do suspiciously look like something that they would have made in the late 80s. So
corridors and caves, yes.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Yeah.
And obviously I think the main difference is how they're shooting it, It's like when we went from the second Doctor to the third Doctor, there was such a difference in how they were shooting the actual episodes. And I think that's also true with this. Like, there's more dynamic angles and more close-ups and everything than how it was done in the Seventh Doctor's era that we just watched. So the one thing I have seen recently is I know there was someone on the Survival reaction that we did who said they weren't going to continue on because, they basically said, oh, that's the end of proper Doctor Who, and I'm not going to go on into soap opera Doctor Who. So I think I see a little bit more of that from some of the classic fans, that it gets a bit too soap opera-y. I don't really see that. It's a bit more dramatic. There's more character building, I would say, of both the companion and the Doctor, but I wouldn't really call it a soap opera. So
yeah, I wouldn't either. Now, here's the deal. Although this is a reboot, it is so completely unlike classic Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. But that being said, it works on its own. Right?
Yeah.
For what they're doing, basically they've kept this idea that you've got a man who can travel through space and time. But it has now, and again, they set that up very well, and finally he admitted there was a war, we lost. Now, in the second episode, we begin to understand, why is he so Colin Bakerish? Why does he have a chip on his shoulder? And now it's beginning to, you're going, wait a minute, okay, we had some problems on Gallifrey way back when in classic Doctor Who, but now there was a war. He didn't name the Daleks, but we now know that.
Yeah.
And we lost. And my planet is gone.
Yeah.
He is the last time. So, yes, his character is making more sense. He's not just obnoxious for the sake of being obnoxious.
Yeah.
And again, Colin Baker, they simply didn't know what to do with him, or he didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
He did, I understand. That was how he wanted to play it. But he didn't get the great scripts. He didn't get the great companions. So this stands on its own. It's a reboot, but it's not a copy.
Yeah.
Right? This is not a Xerox. This is reimagining the internal combustion engine into a time machine. So I am enjoying it. I love Christopher Eccleston. It's really, really sad that Russell T. Davies and I guess Christopher Eccleston had some kind of falling out.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but I think they missed an opportunity by not keeping him on.
Yeah, definitely.
Unless this gets worse in this season, which I don't think it will.
I don't think so. And it's an interesting thing because with it being a sort of reboot, I think the thing is though, it's because it's like you said, it's not a direct copy. It's not just the exact same thing, but it's also not. I would say like the 2009 Star Trek movie, where that was so radically different. And you know, some of the Star Trek movies were starting to lean more towards action, but that was way too actiony, and it took a while before they kind of found their footing once they got to like Star Trek Beyond, and it really felt like, hey, this is Star Trek again. I will say what probably helps is that this is a show, you know, because when you're taking, you know, here's this show from the 60s, we're gonna make it into a new big blockbuster movie event showing the origins of Kirk and Spock and stuff, and it's like, okay, you can do that to an extent. But this one, it's like, you know, we took this show, this TV show with its old format, we updated it. You know, we're not doing the half-hour long, you know, 4 parts per story thing. We're just going to, you know, take it sort of what Star Trek did of the, you know, hour-long or 45-minute long episode by episode, you know, story to week. And that, I think, works, you know, and it trims out, even though a lot of people still disagree with us about this, it trims out a lot of the fat that Doctor Who had. So yeah, and that's probably also why the movie didn't work, because it was just trying to do too much, and it just didn't work out. And we said, like, it's strange that they made, you know, a TV movie but didn't have a season like ready to go. So like this entire project lived and died on, you know, this one airing of this movie in the United States, and apparently like it was going up like the same night as like a really big episode of Roseanne, and it's just like, and that was just it killed the entire project there. And it's just like an entire project, you know, an entire show should not be decided on losing ratings one night to Roseanne.
Yeah, which was a huge blockbuster hit in the 90s.
Yeah, so luckily this worked out, and I do think the format still works. It's updated, but it's not too radically different.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking that same thing about the Star Trek reboot. You know, you have the same basic characters, but again, reworked their origins, reworked a lot of the relationships.
Yeah.
And whereas the Star Trek 2009 movie is not the Star Trek series, it works on its own level. This works on its own level.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing. Before we even get to the plot, here's the question for you. You're given the question by the Doctor, which way do you want to go, forwards or backwards?
Well, being a historian, I would always go backwards.
Yeah.
Because the future, as we have said many, many times, because, you know, for example, they go ahead 150 years, you got the Dalek invasion, and another one they go ahead 175 years, and there's no talk about the Dalek invasion. The future there is no one single future timeline. You want to talk about the multiverse. The future is a multiverse because, you know, butterfly wings flapping causes a hurricane. The whole butterfly effect changes every future timeline. And there are currently 8 billion people on the planet, and every one of them is an opportunity to change the timeline. But if you can, in fact, physically go back into the past, that is a timeline that has been set. Now, sadly, you can change what happened in the past, creating a brand new future timeline from there, which is, you know, the huge time paradox. But for example, you know, when William Hartnell accidentally burned down Rome because he left his glasses sitting on a table and the sunlight caught the paper on fire, or Hartnell telling the Greeks that the only way they were going to get into Troy was to build the Trojan rabbit.
Yeah, or the fire of London.
Yeah,
the Fifth Doctor accidentally caused as well. So, and it is also another thing of like, I feel like at least with the past, it's like there's a lot of crap in the past. I at least know what's there.
Yeah,
like I think with Forward, because like I didn't even notice this on first viewing, it's like, you know, we're in this, you know, nice place. There's all these, you know, great people around for the end of the earth. They're all, you know, quadrillionaires, and, you know, they got this seat, and there's just this underlying thing, especially with the the plumber that Rose talked to. It's like it's that underlying theme of Doctor Who, that the future will never get better. In fact, it might get worse, honestly. Capitalism, racism, everything will still exist in the future, which is one of those things where it's like, you like things in Star Trek where it's like, in the future we'll have this utopian society and everything that Gene Roddenberry thought of, and you like that. There is something about Doctor Who, though, that I do kind of like, that it's like, Doctor Who will not sugarcoat it. Like, they will always tell you, no, nothing will get better, but you still just have to work with what you can.
Yeah.
So, it's like, but with that, it's like, I might take the pass because I at least know, what's the terrible thing of the day in the past. Yeah. So, but instead, we went forward. We skipped over the new Roman Empire, unfortunately, and skipped all the way to the destruction of the Earth. But
now, isn't there a future episode in Doctor Who? I think it's like, isn't it in Matt Smith's, where it's the end of the universe? But we've also seen something like that in the classic Doctor Who.
Yeah, there's a couple of those. So every so often the universe ends and it gets better. So
she turned me into a newt. What? I got better.
Yeah. So one of the big things I feel like with this episode compared to what we've seen with classic Doctor Who is the complete culture shock that Rose goes through seeing all of these aliens. Like, most of our companions have kind of taken it in stride, but Rose did not. And I thought that was an interesting thing. I mean, even down to just looking at Cassandra, it's like, oh, well, she's the last pure human, she's like you on paper, and she's about as thin as that paper too. So I find that interesting, just sort of Rose's arc through this episode.
Now, there was one line that Cassandra uttered that I thought was weird, because I thought she referred to herself as a he. Like, as a boy, I did this.
Yeah, she said that she was born a boy, at least. So, it's one of those things. I would be curious how RTD would have written that today, because I feel like that is just sort of a throwaway line that you can only throw away in 2005. But I mean, I guess that's part of her 708 surgeries that she's had over the course of 2,000 years. So, and it is interesting because you talk about the Ninth Doctor's sort of chip on his shoulder. It is definitely a thing. You can see it already. It's not even, because it's not, and I like how we just say Colin Bakery, like that's just our shorthand for getting snippy, basically. But it is a difference, because with him there really wasn't too much reason for it, whereas with the Ninth Doctor, it's like it's clear to see he's trying to run away from that. He's trying to run away from the reason why he didn't tell Rose immediately about his planet being lost, being the last of the Time Lords. He doesn't want to talk about that. So he goes and he's like, oh well, this is great, there's all these aliens, aren't they cool, and everything. And when she's freaking out and she's like, it's weird to be around these aliens, and you're an alien, and I don't know anything about you. And he's just kind of like, he puts up all those walls, basically. So,
and again, referencing Colin Baker, Hartnell was grumpy.
Yeah.
At times, a lot of times, Tom Baker was grumpy. They all, even the last one, McCoy was grumpy, but they were never angry, rude,
Yeah.
like Baker was. And again, I know he from what we've read, he had said, I want to play this completely differently, and then given hopefully he was going to have 3 seasons, he would be able to mellow out and change into somebody. But now you understand why Christopher Eccleston is grumpy, right?
Yeah.
Now, again, we have the knowledge of what's going to happen with the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th Doctor, whatever. But even if I were seeing this in 2005 and had been a fan of the old one, it would strike me that there is a reason for him to be so reticent, so putting up the walls for defensiveness.
Yeah.
And now, second episode, we find out. And I'm sure that the fandom went, what? Gallifrey's not there anymore? There was a war?
Yeah.
Who did you go to war with? How did you lose it? So that is, like me, first time watching this episode, I'm going, again, I know what happened because we watched the anniversary special, but that's the first thing I'm thinking is, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And I'm sure somewhere along the line that's going to be resolved, but it certainly gives him a very different outlook than any of the previous Doctors.
Yeah, because that's sort of the thing is, with the classic Doctors, in terms of like their different characters, it's really just being a response to the previous Doctor, It's like, well, Hartnell was really grumpy, so Troughton isn't, but because Troughton is silly, Pertwee is, a bit more serious and everything. And it's just sort of a back and forth like that, whereas this time, they've set Christopher Eccleston apart from any of them, really, because, if anything, he has a character arc. He has a story arc that he is now going on. We're getting little hints of that, like what has happened to him since we last saw him in 1996, or even, since we saw him at the end of classic Doctor Who, So...
Now, I may have asked you this before. In this season, or in any subsequent season, is there any reference to how he became this Doctor? Is there any reference to the War Doctor? Obviously not until the Matt Smith and David Tennant episode. But is there any reference as to what he was doing between 1996 and 2005?
Not really. The only thing is, because it's also at this point sort of up in the air technically if the movie is even canon, and it's a little bit before they finally confirm that they show like, yes, the 8th Doctor is canon and he is the 9th Doctor, but apart from that they don't really go into much of it. It's just sort of vague stories. Like, we don't get specific details of what happened.
I know that Eccleston has done a lot of the audios and things like that. But so what I'm hearing from you is that at some point between 10 and 15, they actually reference the 9th Doctor, or they say something about him.
I mean, yeah, a bit.
So they still basically they have a copyright on his character.
Yeah, I mean, it's that sort of thing, because this is sort of what defines the 9th Doctor is being just after the war, basically. So it's that trauma and that anger that he still sort of holds on to that defines this incarnation more than his subsequent his successors, basically. So but we did also have some other interesting characters in this episode. Obviously, the most important character of all, the face of Bo, the giant face in a tank. And we did also have Jabe, the tree lady. A very interesting character, I would say. So,
and again, just subtle little stuff like, here's my gift to you, and he breathes on her because he breathes out carbon dioxide, which she needs, because she breathes out oxygen. So that's just fun little, scientific stuff that I'm hoping other people would pick up on.
Yeah, so, and just, I mean, like, we talk about, like, the sets and everything. Like, I could have seen something like this in the 80s. But I will say the costumes are all next level now. Like, especially just on Jabe and the other tree people. It's like, that was exceptional. That looked like, the same sort of quality that the Draconians had all those years ago. So, so that's definitely a big, like, here's where some of that new BBC money went. So,
and I guess the next question for me is, spending a lot of money to reboot this, was it well received? Did the critics like it? Did the fans? Obviously, because it's still going, 20 or something years later. So I'm guessing that the BBC thought their money was well spent.
Yeah, definitely. Because it was also a thing of, like, the landscape had changed. Like, at the end of the 80s, the executives were looking at it and were like, all right, a sci-fi show that we're, sinking money into, it's like, this isn't good. All we're doing is making a show for the nerds, whatever. And there was still a bit of that in 2005, but they were more willing to take a chance on it with shows like Star Trek, or I think Buffy the Vampire Slayer was really popular at this time as well. So they were like, okay, well, maybe we could bring back Doctor Who, but it can't be exactly the same as it was.
Yeah.
So they had this as an update. And I mean, probably the most striking thing about this reboot is the Doctor's outfit. You know, like, and this was the kind of outfit that Colin Baker wanted originally. So, but instead got put into the Technicolor nightmare that he had. But yeah, just to go from all the different lavish suits that all of them wore to just a black leather jacket and you know, a black shirt, black pants, black shoes, and a buzz cut, and that was it. So, and the buzz cut, Paul McGann thought he was going to be able to get away with that because he auditioned with longer hair, but then he went and did a movie where he was playing a soldier, so he had to buzz all of it off. And when he flew in to film the movie, they all panicked and thought, what happened to your hair? And so they got him a wig for the movie, and he hated that wig. So
I'm trying to remember. I don't think I've ever... No, I take that back. I did wear a wig in one show. I was at the University of Texas. We did a children's show called The Puppet Prince. Fun script. I wish I could do it again. And I played a character named Seamus O'Shaughnessy, and I was an Irish peddler. And, you know, I didn't think anything about it, but the director said, yes, because he's Irish, he has to have red hair. That's the look I gave him. So they got me this gigantic, curly, kind of afro, not Ronald McDonald red, but really kind of a dark red. And I had to put the red in. I don't know, at the time I only had a mustache. So I had to do the mustache and the sideburns, and then had this kind of green plaid outfit that I wore. So yeah, but I've actually had to wear the fake beards before, and anything that has to be glued onto your head is just painful.
Well, yeah. So that's. I mean, I was already gonna say, it's like that name sounds like the most like stereotypical Irish name, and then you started describing the outfit and everything. I was like, he's not the Lucky Charms guy, is he?
Well, I always told people, because, you know, we had like 4 or 5 weeks of rehearsal, and I was the only Irish character in the show. Everybody else was, you know, British or whatever. But people always said, you know, how do you know that Irish accent? And I said, passed it off by saying, oh, well, you know, I lived in England for 3 years, and I picked up the Cockney and the BBC, the RP, I guess it's called Received Pronunciation, the RP. And I said, I'm very familiar with all the accents. It turns out it's because they're always after me Lucky Charms. They're magically delicious, you know. So, but anyway.
You know, it's funny, there's a YouTube channel I watch where the guy is Irish, and his accent's not too bad until he watches a video with an Irish person in it, and then his accent just goes up completely, and it's just like, well, he's saying something in Irish, I just don't know what it is anymore. So,
and I've mentioned before, my favorite accent in the 3 years that I was living there, of course, the Beatles were huge at that time. They were all from Liverpool, and I had never heard a Liverpudlian accent before. But they've always wanted to do a character on stage where I could use that. It sounds like a lot of fun, and specifically, I guess it's Beatrice and Benedict in Much Ado About Nothing. There's a character named Dogberry, and if I ever auditioned for that show, I'd want to play Dogberry as if he was from Liverpool. Anyway.
Anywho. Well, if there's anything else, well, the only other thing is the Doctor enabling Rose's phone to call home 5 billion years in the past. That was good. It's a nice thing. There's definitely one thing about modern Doctor Who is there is more of a connection to the present and the what the Doctor called the domestics last episode. There is a bit more connection to that than there was in classic Doctor Who. So, and I mean, just going to the last companion that we had with Ace, where the very last episode is like, oh, let's actually take her back to Perryvale, you know? So that's it. I like that. It's an interesting change. And again, it gives more into Rose's character than even previous companions, so... Oh, and one last thing, doesn't really have to do with the episode, but we didn't talk about it. What do you think of the Doctor's new sonic screwdriver?
Well, I didn't really notice that it was different from the others. Does this one actually work?
Yeah. So you can slide it out, and then this little button here. It used to have a sound. 1 week after I got this, the sound died. I don't know why, and I never got it back. But it's also a UV light.
Oh, cool.
And the bottom here is a UV pen. So you can write down something and then expose it in UV.
Yeah. I always thought the sonic screwdriver was interesting, and I think you told me the reason they got rid of it is because they thought they were overusing it. But it's not like he was overusing it in this. You know, it does help him to do some things, and it didn't work. You know, he was raising the shield, and then the shield started going down again. You know, so that and the passport, whatever that was, the psychic
paper.
Yeah, that was new, if I recall correctly.
It is.
Yeah.
And yeah, there is sort of a cry in the fandom now to get rid of the sonic screwdriver again, and to an extent, it does sort of... I do sort of get it. Like, it does sort of become, you know, almost a magic wand of sorts. It's like, okay, you're doing too many things for a thing that's supposed to be a screwdriver, you know? Like, but it is the nice thing with this version, you know, especially just, like, as a size comparison, it's small, it's compact, it's a tool.
Yeah.
You know, it really does look like a tool compared to the rest of them. So...
And, one last comment from me. In classic Doctor Who, did they ever explain, because we commented on this many, many times, did they ever explain that it was the TARDIS, in fact, translating everything into English? Because I like the fact that he said, no, it's because the TARDIS will get inside your head. Yeah, and she was going, that seems a bit intrusive. But we finally, after, 1963 to 2005, somebody's saying, oh, the reason why you hear everything in English is because the TARDIS translates it for you. That's all you have to say. If they had said that back in Hartnell's time, nobody would have ever thought about it again.
I don't think it's ever explicitly said in classic Doctor Who. So I think that is sort of a new thing. And it does sort of make sense because, like, we're rebooting this, we're trying to get a new audience and everything. It's like, you can get away with that in 1963. The kids aren't really going to care. It's like, oh, well, why are these cavemen speaking English? No one cares, But, but in 2005, everyone's a Weisenheimer now. So you do kind of have to give some explanation.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that is pretty much that, unless you get anything else.
I got nothing.
Then we will be back next week for The Unquiet Dead.
Oh dear.
I believe that's what the next episode is called.
The Modern Undead.
Yeah. What's that episode? I remember that title. Now I don't even remember what that episode was about. Was that a Tom Baker episode?
Modern?
I think so.
Could be, yeah.
There are a lot of Tom Baker episodes. Yeah. So... But that is pretty much it. With all of that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of our modern Doctor Who reactions, as well as another playlist for all of our classic Doctor Who reactions if you haven't checked those out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.